Look at a gorilla. Now look at yourself. One of you is covered head to toe in thick, protective fur, built-in insulation, UV shield, parasite barrier, permanent. Zero maintenance required. The other one just paid $40 for a moisturizer. We are the only primate on Earth that lost its fur. Not some of it, most of it. And the story of how that happened, and everything it cost us, is one of the most absurd chains of events in the history of life on this planet. Here's what nobody tells you about your evolution. You didn't start naked. You started furry. 6 million years ago, your ancestors walked through African forests completely covered in thick, coarse body hair. Head to toe. Every inch. The full primate package. And it wasn't decorative. That fur did things. It blocked the sun. It kept warmth in at night. It stopped insects from getting to the skin. It was, objectively, a very good system. But here's the wild part. You still have those genes. Right now. Sitting in your DNA are the instructions for a full-body fur coat. They're just switched off. Scientists comparing human and chimpanzee DNA found that you didn't lose the genes for hair growth. You evolved new switches that turned them off. It's like having a perfectly functional car in your garage with the emergency brake permanently locked. Everything works. It's just being held back. And every now and then, those switches glitch. You might know someone with an unusually hairy back. That's not a genetic mistake. That's a throwback, a biological reminder of what we all used to look like. So the question isn't why some of us have more body hair. The question is, why did the rest of us lose it? For a long time, even Charles Darwin couldn't figure this out. Darwin explained everything. Long necks on giraffes, beak shapes on birds, but why you're hairless? It stumped him. He eventually settled on the idea that your ancestors just started finding hairless mates more attractive, which is, and I say this with respect, the most "I ran out of ideas" answer in scientific history. But decades of research since then point to something far more specific. And it starts about 2 million years ago. The climate in equatorial Africa changed. Forests shrank. Open grasslands, the savanna, took over. Your ancestors, early members of the genus Homo, had to start moving farther on foot to find food and water. And walking turned into running. Not sprinting, persistence hunting. This is where you don't try to outrun your prey. You just keep going. You track an animal. You follow it. You run it down over hours until it collapses from heat exhaustion. You can do this. Even today, some communities still hunt this way. Scientists calculated that Homo erectus could have run this way for over 5 hours straight without a water break. But here's where fur becomes the problem. Most mammals cool down by panting. Short, fast breaths. Heat evaporates from the mouth and tongue, cools the blood, protects the brain. It works. But only if you're stopping to do it. You can't persistence hunt with your tongue out. Primates also lack a specific cooling mechanism most other mammals have. A system to cool blood around the brain independently from the rest of the body. Which means when our bodies overheat, your brains overheat with them. Thick fur made this worse. Far worse. You're running for 5 hours in the African midday sun, covered in an insulating coat, with no way to shed heat fast enough. Over time, the individuals with less fur survived longer, hunted better, ate more, had more offspring, passed on the thinner fur genes. But losing fur alone wasn't enough to cool a body. So evolution added something. More sweat glands, millions of them. You have more eccrine glands, the kind that produce actual cooling sweat, than almost any other animal on Earth. You became an extraordinary heat-dissipating machine. And it worked. Hairless, sweaty, deeply unglamorous, but efficient. You could run in the midday heat while every other predator was lying in the shade. You became the endurance athlete of the animal kingdom. The science even has a timestamp for this. A gene variant linked to dark skin pigmentation, MC1R, already existed 1.2 million years ago. Dark skin only became necessary after fur was gone, because fur itself blocks UV radiation. If MC1R is already there, the fur was already missing. Homo erectus, mostly naked, 1.2 million years ago. That's when you became the weird ones. Here's where it gets interesting. Losing fur solved the overheating problem, but it immediately created 3 new ones. No fur meant no UV protection. Therefore, dark skin. Melanin stepped in to shield the bare skin nearest the equator. Populations that lived further from the equatorial sun gradually developed lighter skin over thousands of generations, as melanin is metabolically expensive and less necessary where UV is weaker. No fur meant no warmth at night. Therefore, fire. The controlled use of fire doesn't appear reliably in the fossil record until hundreds of thousands of years after fur loss. Those were cold years. But eventually, fire, warmth, cooked food, gathered communities. No warmth meant exposed skin in winter climates. Therefore, clothing, wrapped animal skins, sewn fabric. And clothing, once it existed, became something more than practical. It became identity, culture, signal. Think about what that chain looks like. You lost fur to run better on the savanna. Next, you needed dark skin to survive the sun. But you froze at night, so you learned to control fire. Then you needed portability in the cold, so you created clothing. But clothing wasn't just for warmth. It became human expression. And finally, that gave birth to the modern fashion industry. A massive global economy built entirely on buying clothes to cover a body that evolution deliberately uncovered. You were trying to solve the problem you created 2 million years ago ever since, and you have built an entire civilization doing it. Now, the fur loss wasn't only about running. Other pressures probably pushed in the same direction. Evolutionary scientist Mark Pagel proposed that losing fur also meant losing parasites, lice, ticks, mites. A thick fur coat is essentially a 5-star hotel for disease-carrying insects. Go hairless, and you remove the habitat. His theory goes further. The less fur you had, the more attractive you became to potential mates. A visible advertisement that you were parasite-free and healthy, which may be why hairlessness, once it started, accelerated through sexual selection. Darwin wasn't entirely wrong, he just had the mechanism backwards. There's also the emotional communication theory. Evolutionary neurobiologist Mark Changizi noticed that you have an unusual third color cone in the eye, specifically tuned to detect changes in blood oxygenation under the skin. That's what lets you see someone blush, go pale with fear, flush red with anger, turn faintly green when they're about to be sick. You can only read all of that on bare skin. And Changizi found that other primates with bare faces also tend to have this third cone, while furry-faced primates don't. Naked skin and enhanced color vision evolved together. Your face became a communication screen that broadcasts your internal emotional state, whether you want it to or not. Every time you go red with embarrassment, that's not a malfunction, that's a feature. Evolution built it in on purpose. So here's what actually happened. 2 million years ago, your ancestors started running. The ones with less fur ran better, hunted more, survived longer. Therefore, less fur became the norm. But that left you exposed to the sun, to the cold, to the dark. Therefore, you built everything else. Pigmentation, fire, clothing, language, cities. Every other primate on Earth is still sitting in their fur coat, perfectly comfortable, watching us scramble. And somewhere in a 5-star hotel you built for yourselves, you are still cold. So the question the mischievous Darwin is putting on the table today is this. Evolution is offering your fur coat back right now. Thick, warm, zero maintenance, forever. But you have to permanently give up one modern comfort in exchange. What is the absolute last comfort you would ever trade away? Drop your ultimate deal breaker in the comments below, and let's see who is too soft for the wild.